Chrystofer face, isn't it? This is passion on steroids, for sure. So
my team's over here laughing as well, because they know that face all too well. It goes from that guy,
yeah, to that guy to like.
It's not one of these, it's one or the other. It's funny.
I'm sure the hair trembles when it sees you.
Yeah, there's that look again.
I mean, you're going to kill with that paintbrush. I mean, there's no messing around there, my love.
I get pretty intense, man.
Yeah, so let's now go through to your editorial world, and we're going to be kind of grazing through these amazing images here. And I'd like to bring in also a guest that we have, because this lovely guest, she is Ivan. Welcome, Ivan. Oh, it's a man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I just changed your sex in a moment. Sorry.
It's totally fine.
It was the long hair. The long hair.
I love that Ivan just took there and he's like, "It's fine. Own it, baby. Own it." So good.
Ivan is very, very cute. Hi, Ivan. How are you today? That's such a noble name, isn't it, Ivan? I love it. So, Ivan, I know you have a question for Chrystofer. We're going to be starting to go through his lovely imagery, and I know your question's related to the editorial world. So, please, over to you.
I do. So what steps do you recommend in starting to get into like the editorial career?
Sure. So first off, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Here's what I would say is I think you have to tune yourself up, and hear what I'm saying. You have to tune yourself up first so that when the opportunity arises, you're ready. Here's the thing I find that I get a lot of questions. Chris, I want to, and acute Julia just said it last, I want to move to New York. I want to go work with all these people, but I don't have any experience. So here's what I would say. Where are you to live now?
I live in Michigan.
Okay. So listen, there's people there that shoot. There's people there that do photo work. There's people there that do makeup. There's people there that do styling. And there's people there that want to do photos. So what I would tell you is if it's in Utah, it's there as well. So when I came back from New York, I had to seek and find a little bit more than what is prevalent there in New York. But what I did was I wanted to find people that just wanted to collaborate. And so that was my approach first, so that I got a lot of experience, so that when it was the time that someone called and said, "Hey, Chrystofer, will you?" I wasn't shaking in my boots of not having some time under the camera, having some time working with teams. And so what I always look at it as is my homework to prepare myself for what is the opportunity that's coming. If I'm just flat and waiting, what I am expecting is for a miraculous miracle to call me on the phone, pop out of thin air, hit me on a DM and social, and that's not reality. That's just not reality. The other thing I know is when you rub elbows with creative people, other creatives show up. And so I have been super blessed that I have a very big mouth, is like some people would tell you. Some people would call it a gift of gab. It depends on who you're talking to. But I always like to talk to people when you're on set. Talk to people, talk to models, talk to makeup artists, talk to people in beauty school. Go talk to people that aren't in your school that are doing makeup or dancers or models or whatever it is. Here's my point. Creatives want to create, and creatives will create. But if no one's asking the question, somebody else is asking that question, and it is going on. Trust me, it is happening in Michigan. I don't care where you are. It's happening because people want to create. And so you have to insert yourself into that. But how you do that is asking the questions, networking with people, and putting yourself out there vulnerably. Listen, when social media went off, while I may be at the top of my game in some aspects, that wasn't an aspect I was in the top of my game. I had to humble myself and go do collabs and go work with some of these people and go find out what the mystery was of why all this was going crazy on social. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what was happening and what wasn't happening and consistency. And I think that that's really important. But I learned. And I think that every time you put yourself out there, Ivan, you're going to learn. And if it's, one of my mentors told me long ago, if you learn one thing in any experience you go through, it was worth your time. Now, I'll add to that. there's been many experiences I've had that I never want to repeat. Okay. I learned. So either way, you can take and learn from it. And whether you want to make it a positive, and some of my worst failures, people go, well, that you failed. Listen, I learned. And it's an opportunity that I don't have to repeat. And so for me, it's all good. It's all positive, but you have to put yourself out there. No one's going to knock on Ivan's door, because while you're a handsome guy and you're in Michigan, and I'm sure you have a lot of friends, nobody, just like they didn't know me in Utah, they're like, who? you gotta put yourself out there. And you know, and it's not easy. Trust me. It's not easy. And I remember going to the mall trying to find models. And girls would be looking at you like, sure, you're a hairdresser and sure you want to do my hair, right? And it became this whole thing of like, no, really, it didn't matter, because I wasn't going to be satisfied with no. If you want it, go get it. No one's stopping you but you. And you can find all the excuses in the world. You can find all the reasons to go get it, and the one reason is you. And if you want it, don't let anything stop you. Ask the questions until you start finding those people that are going to give you the answers. But keep asking them questions.
And the great thing too today, Ivan, is that with social media, to be able to research and source talent is wonderful. So to connect with your local modeling agency and say, you know, you'd like to assist on any jobs when, you know, big guys are coming into town, to start paying a great attention to photographers' credits within your local community, and even bridal photographers saying, listen, I am building my business and I just want to build my brand. I will assist, I will sweep, I will carry cases, I'll do whatever I can, because when you make a connection, that's what it's about. And a great assistant is worth their weight in gold. And I feel the best way of learning the business is to be shadowing Chrystofer and to be able to say, Chrystofer, can I just come and be a fly on the wall? Can I pour coffee? Can I drag bags? Can I do whatever I can to make your day the best day it can be? And what you're doing is you're learning. And so when you start to do that, you start to, number one, learn that world. You start to understand the nuances of what life is like in a photo studio versus being in a salon. And then it inspires you to go, right, I'm now going to practice my Marcel waving. I'm going to again go back to Kim Knitze, because he said some very powerful things about his younger training. He said he practiced finger waves until his fingers were so sore and so cramped because he was not going to not be a master of finger waves. Most people, self included, I remember at college, finger waves, you kidding me? That was so difficult. And who's going to want a finger wave? The very first fashion shows I did in New York, the fashion designer said, finger waves. I went, what?
That's how it goes, though. Isn't it, Vivienne? That's how it goes, isn't it? The one thing you're like, you know what? I'm going to work on my cutting. I want to be a great cutter. I'm going to work on color. And then you get that call and you're like, finger waves. You're like, fantastic. The only thing that could have been worse is pin curls.
Yeah.
But I think that's a true testament to it. I mean, is learn everything you can from everybody, and don't shy away. Don't shy away from learning. And I think that it's a great point. I shied away from dress work. I had to go and find great people that would spend the time with me to relearn that stuff, because I had to challenge myself again. Learn everything you can from everybody right now, and take that and just harness it into that bag of knowledge, and when it's time, pull it out. But if you want those experiences, go get those experiences, because there's nothing stopping you but you. And as many times as the door closes, keep knocking.
Yeah. And to all of our friends watching, we don't know where the next fashion trend will go.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is that you are relevant and you are aware of trends, and that you can move gently through those trends and make them your own, of course. So the more you are open-minded, and I don't know whether you find this, Chrystofer and Ivan, sometimes we meet hair snobs. Oh no, I don't use Saran Wrap, I only use foils. Oh no, I don't use this brush, I use this brush. Oh no, I would never use the razor, I only use. And it's like, why be such a snob? Try it, but learn from the best, and then say, how does that fit my style as an artist, and how can I then kind of navigate through? So Ivan, before we let you go, what do you want to do in your career?
I want to work to just build up my clientele for a little bit, and then my dream goal is to eventually work for like editorial magazines, like photo shoots and stuff like that, and maybe even depending on where this pandemic goes, like work on films and TV shows and stuff like that, and really put my work out so everyone can really see it.
Excellent. Well, my love, if you want some references when you're ready in New York, I would be happy to refer you to some of my dear friends in New York that could take you underneath their wing and guide you on that path. But in the meantime, you have to make a promise to Chrystofer and myself that you are going to study, and practice, and photojournal, because you're training your eye. And then we expect to hear from you when you start to kind of feel a little bit more you're in your groove. So thank you so much, Ivan, for being with us today. And you've got great hair.
Thank you so much.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
So we have another guest that I'd like to bring in. His name is fabulous Kevin Thurston. And Kevin has more experience in the industry. Welcome, Kevin. Kevin, what's your question for Chrystofer?
Great to meet you.
Pleasure.
I did have a question. I've been looking through your imagery and your body of work. It's amazing. I've tended to stick with the same type of woman my entire career, and that's
I know that feeling.
yeah. So everywhere I've worked has been quite conservative. The pretty balayage, My question to you is, in that kind of environment, how do you have tips on how to find people who will sort of go to the edge with you, try these things, because it so rarely pops up in my world.
You mean you don't have a client like this sitting in your chair? Which you'd like to.
I didn't have a client like that either. Trust me, I did not have a client like that either.
But let me ask, before Chrystofer answers this question, Chrystofer, just give me some facts. This look that we're looking at right now, how many hours was invested in this hair?
So there's probably, by the time it was starting to finish, now mind you, I'm gonna be really transparent. This is a model I work with a lot, so she had some pre-existing highlighting that we didn't have to start with, like highlighting or anything. But the color itself, you're probably an hour and a half, and then the cut, you're probably a couple hours. But that's somebody that I work with a lot and have a plan consistently. If I was starting from scratch, that's going to be probably a day project to get her to an end result like this, where I'm going to feel comfortable the first time sitting around.
Okay, because I want to just put this into context.
Yeah, so I think, I'm always about transparency. I think it's important that we don't pretend that something is not what it is, and especially time-wise, right? I think that's super important. The other thing is, I think we need to be charging accordingly, because if people want stuff like this. So let me back up a step, Kevin. And first, let me say pleasure to meet you and hello. And where are you located?
I'm out in West Hampton in New York.
Perfect. It's a beautiful area. Let me say this. My business was built on blondes and color correction. Okay, so blondes first, color correction second. And growing up in Utah, it's super, super conservative. Tons and tons of blonde and blue-eyed people with even the brown hair wants to be blondes, right? We're almost to California, and they all thought they were California. So that's where I built my business. Now, to go into something like what you're seeing here, there's no way you're transitioning your guests from that to that. So what I did was I started getting bored in the salon, and I started finding some of the younger guests that I would take, and I would start behind the ear and start doing what I call signature pieces. Just little soft pieces of pastel colors. The ones I would start with were like baby pink, soft blues, even a baby yellow, right? And I would start with that. And for a couple reasons why I would put it there. A, they could tuck it, they could see it, they could commit to it, or they could put it away and it's gone, okay? Because here's what I found. Learn from my mistakes. I've tried to take people into stuff like this. Hey, Chris, I love your work. You can do whatever you want. Cool. They don't mean that, Kevin. They don't mean that, because you end up going down this road and they're like, oh my God, what did you do? So 2 times of that, I learned that consultation is everything. And when somebody says you can do what you want, that doesn't mean you're doing, my progression and their progression are probably very different. Okay. So learn from that. I think consultation is huge. The other thing is I always want somebody to be left wanting more. What I don't want to do is ever go over the top again to the point that they are asking for less, because that is far harder to retract and back away from, especially with color and of course with cutting, right?
Sure.
So a lot of the places that Vivienne referenced earlier, schools, a lot of the guests that a lot of the girls that you look at here are hairstylists. They're in beauty school. So these are girls that now this is a model that I've worked with a lot, but a lot of these are like, I would see the young eager ones in beauty school and I was like, right, why don't you come have a day with me? Let's have some content. All of these girls here are all hairdressers.
Interesting. Okay.
So I think it's finding and the other thing is none of these girls are, I mean, what would you say, 5'5", 5'4", 5'5", 5'4"? They're not tall. They're not tall. So I think it's putting in perspective of what are you shooting? What are you looking to do? Is it content's from here up. So I don't need somebody tall. I need a pretty face and somebody that likes what is happening. And then I think you move the needle a little bit at a time, Kevin. Like to be doing the stuff that I do, right? You probably see the 10% of the 90% I really do. And the reason is because that's what I've been so focused on, is like the editorial, the high vivid color, the strong lines and stuff like that. But, you know, that's probably in reality 10% of what's going on. So
you know the other thing, Chrystofer and Kevin, that we always did at Sassoon's and at Trevor Sorby's, we had house models.
Exactly.
And when you have house models, you are picking the cutest girls at, you know, art school, hairdressers, and you are giving them free services in exchange for just basically walking about out there with your cards, so that when somebody sees the right look on the right person, which is the key, you mentioned consultation. As we get into our haircut segment, we're definitely going to dive into the consultation. But when it's the right look on the right person, then it's just a beautiful marriage of great style. But clearly, when we as hairdressers get over enthusiastic, and how many of you at home can relate to this, where you push the envelope a little too much and you did get resistance because it was for you, it wasn't for the client, right? So, you know, that's where you pay the price. And there's this thing called wigs and hair pieces and hair extensions. And when you meet somebody that has a great look, but they don't want that commitment of edge, there's nothing wrong with doing some really cool wigs. I mean, there's a great wig market out there that can be very cool and edgy, but it's all about, I feel, that Kevin Thurston represents style. And it begins with yourself. But I believe having house models is a really good place to begin. And I think that's great advice, Chrystofer, whispering into it and building the momentum and being relevant to that person in your market. Because they're clearly, you can go anywhere in the world right now and see somebody with faded out pink hair.
of course.
Wearing no makeup, right? And it's like, well, if you're going to do that faded pink hair, you've got to maintain it. It's got to be cut beautifully. It can't look like dry sort of thatched hair or straw hair. And you need to dress to it and make up to it, right? So it's a very big commitment when we get into these primary things. So I think that's really important. Kevin, I know you have one other question about the photographic work.
I do, yes. Thank you for that information that you just gave, because it clicked also, because I remember all the girls in beauty school and hair school, they were very open to anything.
Totally, right?
They're very cute. So yes.
But Kevin, let me say one thing to that. Okay, and I want to tag on to what Vivienne said because it's amazing. House models are so key. All of these you see here, these are all house models. You have to get a commitment. Okay, sure. You're not going to be the only one that wants them as house models. So find a balance of that conversation in the consultation. I'm going to do this for you. We're going to commit to this. What I need from you is X, Y, Z. I need to know what's going on with your hair. I'll maintain it for free. I just had a model. I don't have anything going with her. It's actually the girl that's in the middle in this purple. She's now blonde. She's on my social right now in one of the last few shots. But she needs a retouch. I don't have anything that's coming up. But for me, I want to maintain that. Sure. So that when it's ready, I'm not having to spend so much extra time. So I would rather have a relationship where she feels like she can call and go, I know you don't have anything going right now, but can I still have a retouch? Absolutely, because when it comes time that I do need her, that's the kind of stuff I get. So a little bit of time goes a long way. And I think the other thing I would tell you is, even if it's $50, $100, when you get them on set, you're doing a content day, pay them a little bit of money. It goes so far. It's the gesture. When I got back to Utah after living in New York, nobody wanted to pay anybody anything. And I was disgusted, to be honest with you. I'm like, these people are spending all day. They're taking time away from work. They're taking time away with their families. Whatever they're doing, respect the creativity. So I got a quick reputation that you're going to work with Chris, you're getting paid. Didn't matter what the number was. It was the fact that you were being taken care of. And I always want people to feel when they walk away that we did creative things, but they were well taken care of, because the next time when we need to go over hours or even something short, they're in. And I want somebody in, because the end result looks completely different when somebody's in and when somebody's like, well, what time is this over? Right? Huge difference.
And Travis Wilby always used to say to me, Viv, you've really got to focus on your photographic work. And at that time, it was doing everything you could to get in a published magazine, which means you've got to get through a lot of editors in order for your work to be accepted, especially if you're not represented by big manufacturers. If you're an independent, then you're not advertising in that magazine, and that does have an influence for sure. So there's always catches to this different world. But today, because we can self-publish, our work can go anywhere in the world. It is a brochure without boundaries. And we have to be so mindful and intentional about what our brand stands for and what it does not stand for, and making sure that it's always quality. So as you want to shift into more creative, having that time blocked out to work with creative people, building your house models. And then I know you had a question about setup in your salon. Please go ahead.
I do. I'm about, give or take, about 9 months out from opening our first salon. And really, what'd you say?
Congrats. Good luck. And like, fingers crossed and toes crossed. And I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
That's a big step right now. Wow.
Yeah. We're really in the planning stages and waiting, of course, to see what happens with everything.
Of course.
So, one of the things I wanted to incorporate is a studio within the salon for myself and for any of the hairstylists that we hire. So I wanted to ask you, do you have tips on going about that, where it should be in the salon, and kind of even at a minimum, what it should have as far as backdrops, lighting? Do you have a kind of a starter?
Totally.
For me?
Yes, and yes, you should have a studio in the salon. Now, I think that the best thing would be a space that can be convertible. And so here's the term I'm using. Convertible in the sense that you could use it to do studio work.
Okay.
Maybe it's also your space that you could do education.
Okay.
Right? So I think that I would think of a space that isn't just solely only dedicated to studio, unless you just have massive money and massive space, because it's not always going to be used as a studio. But here's what I would say into that. Don't put it in a place that if you decide you're doing a client or one of your other stylists are doing a client, that you can't go, right, you know what? I know it wasn't set up to do the studio today, but can we set it all up? Because that is not going to happen.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? You want it to be set up to the point that it's not going to inhibit what's going on with the rest of the work. You want it to be convertible, that you could do education in that space if down the road you're not doing a shoot that day. But you want it to be set up, Kevin, in the space and available, that it's not going to be daunting and it's not going to be a process, because getting people to just take pictures, befores, afters, while you're doing your client, capturing all, it's daunting. And if you try and do that on every client every day, all day, you better plan for a lot of extra time, right? And we know that. And so I think the thing would be picking a couple amazing ones that are going to really represent the salon, your brand, the individual stylist, and spending a little bit of time with them. But if they decide on a whim that is going to happen, it has to be set up and ready to go. It can't be a 15, 20 minute, 30 minute, hour setup, because they'll never do it. They'll just do it. Getting them to do it now is still tough. And I think that even as heightened as social media is, I still forget. And, I lead a brand. I lead my own brand and my own team. And, I still forget, because that just wasn't the makeup when I was coming up. It was exactly what Vivienne was talking about. It was competitions. It was doing editorial work. It was getting on covers. Those were the things that were like the most gratifying, high level things that could be accomplished. And so I think that it's it's great that people can share that. Really take heed in what Vivienne said. What goes out does not have a disclaimer at the bottom of your picture. So nobody should have to, I didn't have the right product, I didn't have the right this, I didn't have the right that. Bottom line is, if you're not 1000% with it or what it represents, don't post it.
Okay. All right.
Put it out.
That was really great information. Thank you so much.
Totally.
Thank you so much, Evan. So thank you so much for your advice, and of course, good luck, and I wish you great success with your salon.
Thank you.
Go get him, Gavin.
So before we finish up with our editorial section, I have someone very, very special I want to bring into the stream, who is the king of editorial world, and our dear friend.
Hello.
Oh my God, Nikki, how are you?
Good, excellent.
You, my friend, I love you.
You're looking pretty fabulous yourself, and I've been listening to what you've been saying, and it's just wonderful, actually, because I remember meeting you so many years ago, and I remember you coming in with the parrot situation in the studio, with your foot, and I was doing, it was 2006, and I was doing the avant-garde for Naha, and you came in and you said to me, I don't know what you're beep doing. I want to do this kind of stuff, but I don't know where to start, and the rest is sort of history, because, it's been fantastic to see you grow and the work sort of rise up like a phoenix into this wonderful sort of hairdresser that can more or less do anything, really, from the earth to the moon. When I first met you, it was like, ooh, I don't know about that. And I saw these pictures and I thought, I'm not going to say anything, but unless I'm asked. But
Don't believe that, he told me.
It was an outrage. And now when I see it, and I judge now, I can tell immediately the quality of what you do and the road and the trip, the journey you've taken. And when I talk to people, I always mention you. And I say, what do you think about Chrystofer Benson? They say, oh, it's great. I said, now, hang on a minute. What do you think he's done in his career to take him to where he is today? Oh, we don't know. And I said, you know what? He always took the stairs. He never took the elevator to get to where he was going, And that's what I really admire about you, Chris. You stuck to your guns. You've been outspoken. I know what that's like in my career. But you can be outspoken if you really are an artist and you really have that depth of passion, you have that depth of ability, and you can be outspoken like Salvador Dali was, or these great artists, and Picasso especially, and the rest is history, and I think you've earned the right to be where you are, and other people, like I saw on the program, it's fantastic advice, but my goodness, they've got a long journey to take, and they're going to have to wear their courage on their sleeves and to really, to go to where they need to go to,
Yes, yeah. And to put it all in context with our fabulous Nicholas French here as our guest today, Nicholas has won numerous awards. His experience from salon ownership, film, television, editorial, advertising, winning numerous awards. He's been a mentor and a teacher to so many of us. And if you haven't seen Nicholas's to both of us here, if you haven't seen Nicholas's Hair Heroes, do check it out. And also the tribute that we did to his father, Freddie French. We took hairdressers on a journey from the 1920s right the way through to the end of his career. And it's wonderful as hairdressers to study our craft and study the legends and study the history, because fashion always moves around in the most amazing circle. So I hope today that we're triggering some inspiration for you, and you're thinking about how you can apply this to your world and make it your own, because the most important thing is that these amazing artists sitting here have their own style. And they develop their own style over a period of time. And Nicholas said some very powerful things that, Chrystofer climbed the stairs, he didn't take the elevator. And it really is about that. So as long as you have a vision, without a vision, it's very hard to do anything. And as long as you have some kind of direction and you're around people to support that vision, with a lot of hard work, it can be yours as well. So you have to make it your own. So Nicholas, when you think back to how you saw Chrystofer as a young chap.
Oh, shit.
Well, actually,
What was the thing that you saw in him where you thought this guy's going to go somewhere? Something that we can all learn from today.
Because I remember setting up at the Hudson Street sort of matrix school at the time, and Chris was working sort of centered there, sort of running the school and stuff, you know. And you know, I had these ideas, you know, when I wanted to do a course. I think one was called Dare to Create or something, and I was bringing life-size mannequins, you know, with legs and arms and everything, setting things up, and he sort of head came around the corner, and every time I moved my head around, he was behind me, thinking, well, what's he doing? Why is he doing this? Because it was somewhat of a different thing that I did, because it's all about originality. You're only as good as the last thing you create. And I think enthusiasm's huge, and I think asking the questions, like you were saying before, be irritating, you know. In Vidal Sassoon's book, his last book, he said, when I was 17, I went to the Colosseum, the Polytechnic, to watch hairdressers where one could, and you could ask the hairdressers questions, okay, on Thursday nights. And he said, you know, I was the most irritating student because I asked everybody questions, and this man came onto the stage and people laughed because he was so ahead of his time. And I hated that, and I kept going up to him and said, look, I think it's fantastic, you know, teach me how to do this because the hair's moving. And it was my dad and Vidal Sassoon looking on, and it's the same criteria, you know. You've got to ask, how do you do it? How do you create this stuff?